I do want to talk about a mass shooting that happened in Canada on April 18th, because it hasn't received much press here, but there is a pattern that it shows in which the crisis was exploited to deprive people of their right in exactly the same way as our left tried to here. Except for, they can't because we have a Republican president and for now a Conservative Senate too. But if they had the power to, they'd be acting exactly how they're acting in Canada right now. So let's talk about what happened, and we'll go from there, all right? So, like I said, April 18th, a guy went on a 13-hour-long rampage. It was this guy, Gabriel Wortman. 22 people are dead, making it Canada's worst mass shooting. All right. Now, I do want to say before I go ahead that leftists seem to look forward to such shootings as events that they can capitalize on. It's really sick, but I think decent people will look at a shooting after the fact and say, how could we have prevented that? What caused the guy to snap, Is there anything we could have done? In some cases, there will always be some evil, crazy guy. And the best thing you can do is make sure there are armed people out there who can put an end to the shooting should it happen. But the way that these leftists seem to want the shootings to happen so they can capitalize on it is really twisted. Anyway, this is, like I said, Gabriel Wortman. It began apparently with an assault on his girlfriend, and his girlfriend escaped the physical attack. She went into some woods near where they lived, and after that, this guy just started driving around and shooting people, most of whom he previously had some kind of connection with. It seemed like he had a list of people that he wanted to get vengeance against. We don't know why, but that seems to be his thing. Now, the reason, or one of the reasons that he did so, can you call it well, but he succeeded for so long in his plan, is the fact that he used a car that was made up to look like a police car. And at the same time, he had a full police uniform. We do know that there were several homes on fire when police got there, including his. When police arrived at his home, it was on fire, and there were several other homes on fire in the near vicinity. But again, this just shows that police were hours away at the time when seconds counted, right? He had a pistol that was acquired in Canada, and several long-barreled guns. It doesn't say they were rifles or shotguns. I know at least one rifle, but that were obtained in the United States, showing that essentially gun control failed. He got them from all over. It didn't really matter. When you don't really care about the laws and you just don't follow them, you can just get the gun. The gun control that was there, this ensured that his victims were disarmed. All right. Police, when they showed up at his house and they were investigating, the burning house and so on, and everything in the local vicinity, then started to get 911 calls for help about 35 miles away. That's how far he'd gotten when he was on his rampage going to kill other people. Those others who had wronged him, presumably, at some point in his life. So he drove to a house, killed a woman that he knew, before removing his police uniform, toward the end of his shooting, steals her car. Then he drove to a gas station and was finally, again, 13 hours after he started, finally shot by a police officer who just happened to be there at the gas station refueling. So basically, it's like finally he ran into a good guy with a gun. Finally. But that's how long it took. I mean, the shooting continued until eventually the good guy with the gun, who happened to be a cop in this case, but could have, been someone else, stopped him. It was killed on that Sunday morning, 13 hours after the attacks began. I mean, that's a seriously long period of time. He owned a denture practice in the city of Dartmouth near Halifax. It was called Atlantic Denture Clinic. It'd been closed for the past month because of the pandemic. He was forced to close. We don't know if that was motive for the attack in any way. But this is being so unbelievably exploited. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. All right, it's been so unbelievably exploited that the Prime Minister, Trudeau, just outlawed guns by fiat. He just decided. That's what I meant to do. He announced an immediate ban on 1,500 different firearms. There was no bill. He did not go through a legislature, just like what we've been talking about in these different mayors and governors and, Bill de Blasio and so on. He just decided, him and his little council, no legislature, nothing, no input from the public. He just decides, okay, that's it. They're banned. You can't have them anymore, immediately. But they weren't, apparently, check this out, they weren't licensed. You know what that means? He didn't have them legally. So they just banned all these law-abiding gun owners from having their rifles, because they're generally semi-automatic rifles that Trudeau just banned. They just prevented all these different Canadians from being able to defend themselves with their rifles, and yet this guy didn't even care about the law. Didn't care. As most criminals don't. Certainly those who are planning on, driving around the city or the state, with some kind of mass shooting. I guess the province in this case. But those people don't care about what you put down on paper. I mean, all you're doing is disarming the people who could have potentially, maybe, stopped it. Because again, it only stopped when finally some other guy with a gun showed up. But it's like he's truly a dictator. Truly. I mean, the shooter used several different guns, and types of guns in his rampage, we're told. In fact, he used pistols too. Only one of the guns that he used has just been banned by Trudeau. One. So, why did Trudeau come up with this, this list of 1,500 guns to ban? There's no correlation between the shooting and the gun ban. There isn't. Trudeau just wants you to think that there is. In fact, he had a wish list. Things he wanted to ban, and so he just waited for the perfect opportunity. Just like they do here in the United States. Like, oh, there's been a shooting, so let me go ahead and, just ban whatever guns I feel like banning. That's what he did. Like, again, most of the guns were illegally acquired, and they weren't in Trudeau's list. And yet, here we are. It's just unreal. Seriously. And those who already own such guns that were now banned are being given 2 years to sell their guns to the government. In other words, you get, some money back when you turn in your gun. I'm not sure that's called a sale because it's not a voluntary transaction. A lot of the media sources that are reporting on this refer to it as comply. You have 2 years to comply. And that's an interesting choice of words. Because if you don't comply, if you don't, sell your guns to the government, then they're going to send the guys with guns, usually a SWAT team, to come in there and take the guns from you. American Joe Show. Trudeau couldn't name 3 guns, let alone 1,500. He's just another liberal loser that knows zero about firearms. That is very true, and thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe, I appreciate that. Well, none of these people can. They use these stupid terms when they're talking about guns, and they always get it confused, right? They don't actually know what they're talking about. You hear them talking about the different clips, and you just listen to them and they say automatic or semi-automatic as if there's no difference. The terminology is so confused. But the speed at which the Trudeau government did this, the speed at which they're like, okay, here's 1,500 guns that you're not allowed to have anymore. It shows that this was obviously the exploitation of a crisis, much as how the left plans on doing it here. Anytime there's a shooting, it's like, okay, now is the time, to jump on and say, okay, you shouldn't have any guns. No more gun deaths, which is, of course, a fallacy. If you ban guns, you wouldn't ban gun deaths. You can't ban evil people who commit, horrendous acts. You can't. Sadly, but, you have to live in reality here. But it doesn't matter to Trudeau or to his leftist government whether the ban would have stopped the shooting or not. They're just being exploitative. And it shows that they'll seize people's rights at the earliest opportunity, standing on the graves of the people who were shot. That's what happened. think about in our current state, right? Where the left had the opportunity, these Democrat governors throughout the country, where they had the opportunity, they shut down the economy, they nationalized the industry, they set up the welfare state complete with, UBI. They will exploit any crisis to get what they want. They won't exploit the crisis to do what needs to be done to help people. It's to get what they want. Notice that even if, he was exploiting this, let's just say that he was just kind of stupid, all right? And he just wanted to look at this shooting and say, okay, we can stop this shooting from ever happening again. We'll just get a list of these guns that he used and we'll ban those. Okay, it would be ignorant, but there would at least be a correlation between the shooting and his action. That's not what he did. He's like, here's 1,500 guns on my wish list. We'll ban those. Doesn't matter if they were used or not. Yeah. And here in the US, as they're, canceling our rights and essentially instituting communism of sorts, basically is communism if you really think about it, the nationalization of industry by force and so on. And they did it all for a flu hoax. And when I call it a hoax, I don't mean that the virus isn't real. I mean that the virus isn't the Black Death, isn't the bubonic plague. According to the numbers that we have now, it's no more dangerous than bronchitis. And we've surrendered so much, or should I say, we didn't surrender it. Those rights were stripped from us, taken from us. All right, but my whole point of this shooting, this horrendous shooting, is the shooting came to an end when a cop with a gun put an end to it. And the response from the leftist government is, make sure there are fewer people able to, stop bad guys. All right. And by the way, it won't stop at semi-automatic rifles. If you're Canadian and you're watching, don't think this is the end, because that's just the beginning. Next time, eventually they'll get rid of everything, because that's what they want. They want the people to be disarmed. Some of them will outright tell you, only the police and military should be armed. And then you're like, oh, you must really trust the police. You must really love the government. No, we hate authority. We hate police. It's so kind of dysfunctional. Wait, if you enjoyed that video, please remember to like and share. I can't grow without you. Also, if you want to be reliably notified of new videos, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. If you're able to support the production of these videos, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe at Subscribestar, or maybe get one of the healthier products, or even get some merch.